So is it possible to go from this to this in one simple click? Yeah, it kind of is. We're going to look at using your fisheye lens as an ultra wide angle lens to get an even wider lens than you ever imagined. Stick around. So we did a video a while back comparing the framing and the aspect of an ultra wide angle lens like a 15mm to a fisheye lens, and I'll put a link to that video at the end of this, you can check it out. But the question came up, instead of using the ultra wide angle, could we just use the fisheye for everything? And in shots where we didn't want a fisheye effect, could we adjust that in Lightroom, correct the distortion, and change it to an ultra wide angle lens? So we're going to dig into Lightroom now, and using the exact same shots with the ultra wide angle and the fisheye, we're going to see if we can correct the fisheye to get that ultra wide angle look, and if we can really get the same or similar images. Okay, so here's a shot I took with the ultra wide angle. This is 15mm, and then this shot is shot from the exact same spot with the fisheye lens, also set at 15mm. It's the 8-to-15 zoom fisheye lens. I set this at 15mm. So you can right away see the huge difference between the ultra wide angle and the fisheye lens. With the fisheye, you're obviously getting that rounded, distorted look. But what if I wanted to straighten out those lines and get a similar shot using the fisheye? So in Lightroom, under Lens Corrections, there's a box you can click called Enable Profile Corrections. One click to that, and you're going to see what this does. Boom, just like that, you've got a basically straightened out image. Now compare that to the shot with the ultra wide 15mm, and you're going to see the actual cropping on the 15mm is a lot tighter. Go back to the fisheye lens, and you've got a shot with pretty much straight lines that's actually even wider than the 15mm lens. But let's crop this to get the same framing as we had with the ultra wide and see what the two images look like side by side. So here's the fisheye image corrected and then cropped to look just like, or more like, the wide angle image. So let's go back to the wide angle image now. Here's the wide angle. Here's the fisheye. Here's the wide angle. Here's the fisheye. And you can see, other than a slight distortion, the poles aren't exactly straight. On the fisheye shot here, they're pretty much the same. The framing is the same, the composition is the same, the aspect is basically the same, and the little bit of a tilting effect that you have here, you can actually correct in Lightroom also. It's very easy to do. So if you want to get even deeper into this, you can actually correct these lines even more. But I did this with one simple click of that lens correction, Enable Profile Corrections, and basically turn this fisheye lens into an ultra wide angle lens. I mean, these two shots are very, very similar, and with a little bit more editing, I can make them look basically exactly the same. So let's take a look at a couple more shots here to see if this is really consistent. So here's a shot I took with the 15mm ultra wide, and then this one is with the fisheye. And I'm standing in the exact same spot, and you can see the doors. Look at the doors in the middle. They basically stay in the exact same spot when I toggle between these two. So now let me correct the fisheye under Lens Corrections, Enable Profile Correction, and boom, you have really everything is nice and straight like an ultra wide angle lens. It doesn't have the fisheye look to it anymore. And going back to the 15mm, you can see the crop is a lot tighter. Go back to the fisheye and you actually get a lens that's wider than 15mm. I don't know what this would be. Would it be 10 or 12mm? It's a really ultra wide angle lens. Again, let me crop this one so that it matches the framing of the ultra wide angle. And let's see how they look side by side. Basically the same composition between these two images. You can see the perspective is just a little bit different, but really not anything noticeable. Any other differences I can correct in Lightroom, it's not a big deal, but again, this is one click and a simple crop, and I basically have the same image from the fisheye lens compared to the ultra wide angle. Now, what if I moved closer? See, here's a shot where I moved closer and framed the image with the fisheye lens similar to the way that it was framed with the ultra wide. So what if I use this image and enable profile corrections? What's going to happen here is now it's going to cut off the ends. You get really a different aspect compared to the ultra wide angle. And all the edges of the image are cut off. So basically, if this is something that you want to do, if you want to use the fisheye as an ultra wide, you have to make sure that you're allowing enough room on the top, bottom, and sides of your frame to allow this image to expand into the corrected image afterwards. So if you start out with a fisheye image like this and you correct it in Lightroom, you're going to lose the left and right, you're going to lose the top and bottom. You're going to lose a lot of your image. So you want to make sure if you're going to do this that you have it framed properly, where you have plenty of room around the image for when you correct it in Lightroom for that image to expand into the frame. So let's take a look at a couple more. This one was shot from down looking up, so you have a little bit of perspective distortion here. When you go into the fisheye image, you can see we're down looking up. So when you correct this one, it's going to give you a little bit more of an exaggerated effect. You can see how the lines are kind of shooting out a little bit more, and these branches on the trees are kind of elongated. It looks a little bit weird because you're not holding the camera level. I wasn't holding the camera level in this situation. I was looking up. So my lines are going to get a little bit more distorted. And like I said, this is something that is also, though, correctable. If you want to dig even deeper into correcting these lines, it's easy to do in Lightroom. You can do it in Photoshop. And this is going to work with pretty much any image that you try to do this with. Correct the distortion and you get a nice wide angle image that doesn't have that fisheye look. Now here's one that I already specifically corrected. If I take off the profile correction, you can see the distortion there and set it back to my original composition, and I get an interesting image, but I didn't like the warped look of the curved lines and everything. So basically I just corrected it and cropped it, and I got a really nice ultra wide angle image. But in some cases you want to embrace the roundness. Looking up at a domed ceiling like this, you don't want to take away the fisheye look, because then you basically lose a lot of your image on the ends, and certain images really call for that rounded fisheye look. You probably don't want to do it with people in your image though, because then it gets really rough. You get your people all stretched out and weird looking, so you're not going to want to do it with people in the image. Really anything where you have lines that you want to straighten out and make anything more natural looking, it really works well with that. So basically just like that, you can just add another lens to your bag, an ultra wide angle lens basically, if you use your fisheye as an ultra wide angle lens. One simple click in Lightroom changes the distortion, basically gives you back your straight lines. You lose a lot of image around the end, a lot of that fisheye image that you get in the 180 degree field of view, but it's really simple to be able to just correct it with one click, a couple of little cropping edits, and you can basically get the same image from a fisheye lens as you can with an ultra wide angle lens. So good to know, but try it out. Let us know if you have any questions. Like I said, I'm going to put a link here to the video that I did comparing the composition between ultra wide angle and fisheye, and I'll put another video here that we did about fisheye lenses. A lot of fun to use, so check those out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.